trying to enter into the industry. And since we are a tech group, so the industry would be the tech field, whichever area one chooses. And gatekeeping suggests that there may be some cases where, I don't know, it's hard to get in because of whatever. Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
so good at
this is hard to really pull apart.
yeah. All right, that's fair enough. Anybody else want to interpret the poster?
When you say interpret the poster, you're speaking specifically to just the image or just the topic as a whole?
I mean, basically everything. Like some person see the poster and I hear your different views, some things that I'm not expecting. So the first thing I wanted to do was, what do you guys understand from the poster?
Well, just speaking in a more general sense, the whole topic of gatekeeping for entry level roles in tech. Yeah, just speak to that barrier of entry that persons who are looking to get into this space. Um, yeah, barriers that may exist. Could be a variety of things, but just anything that is preventing someone or anything that serves as an obstacle in getting into the tech space.
Mm. Mm. All right, all right. Anybody else wants to try? Overflow, you want to try?
Yeah, so from what I get from the poster, you have the silhouette of the person pushing against the door like they're trying to keep it closed. So I would say it represents employers putting all these various requirements like experience level, education, certificates, and all of that to raise the bar for their prospective employees that they want in the company.
All right, I think most of you basically got the gist of the poster. Right? So essentially, when you take a look at it, right, the themes are very strong here. The job is on the other side of the door, and you, the potential employee, you're being prevented from going over the other side of the door because of these long list of requirements and all these other things you need. So there's essentially a barrier between you and what you want to get, and you're pushing against that door to, try and get to that goal, right? So I think everybody kind of touched on what was happening there, and the poster, I was being very intentional about the design, right? So I think we can kick things off. How many? I'd like to hear from each of you. How many years you think is needed to get the entry level role?
I feel like we'll need some kind of more narrow definition or proper definition of what entry level means. Or does it mean someone who just left school or someone who is just yeah? I feel like that isn't quite clear because entry level could be someone who is trying to get in to a particular area after moving from one other area, so they know stuff already, or it could be someone with just like zero experience in anything at all, I guess.
Yeah,
All right, then go ahead.
yeah, just to add to what Andres just saying, yeah, having a definition as to what an entry level role is would be helpful because I mean I'd even go as far as to say by virtue of it being labeled as an entry level role, years of experience should not necessarily be the thing that you'll be vetting them for, as it is an entry level role. Um, and would an entry level role be like a junior role or an internship? What would be an entry level role? But also, I would say I'd be more concerned if I were an employer. I'd be more so concerned with what you have done, what do you have to show, because years of experience in and of itself may not be indicative of anything. You know, somebody could spend quite amount of years somewhere and not necessarily have done anything impactful or substantial wherever they were. So I'd more so look at what projects have you done, what projects have you been a part of, and that type of thing.
Hmm. Hmm. All right then. So yeah, let's take a step back. What does entry level role mean to you? I'll tell you what it means to me. Entry level role can be me just left school, me fresh more on this job. So, me apply for one, just if me not experience and me apply for a role. It could also mean somebody who pivoted. Yeah, somebody who pivoted from a different line of work. So they have experience, just not in this field. Right? So for me, I'd use those two as my definition for entry level. What about the rest of you?
So for me, I would strictly define it as your first job in the as you leave school. So it doesn't matter if you're transitioning from a different field. It just means that you have no professional experience at all in any sector of the workforce. That's how I define entry level.
So just let's throw another thing that I just thought of in there. So like, how about considering the case where someone may be like they don't have they are like self-taught, so they've been doing a lot of projects and all of that, but they don't really have any certification or anything. No work, no certification, nothing. They've just been doing a lot of projects, so they know their stuff. Well, I guess you can say they know their stuff, but they don't really have that quote unquote paper. So would you consider that kind of person entry level or not?
You're saying if a self-taught person would qualify as entry level?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would qualify. But that's kind of tricky. Does this person have like, did they finish high school? Did they get a degree?
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
degree, there's no paper. It's just I guess you would say informal experience.
Hmm. That one's a little tricky though. That one's a little tricky because, um, so I'm gonna think of this from a Jamaican employer's perspective where they like to see, or you went to this high school, or you finished. More importantly, the university you went to, because corporate Jamaica is really heavy on like degree, right?
Hmm.
So yes, I would consider them entry level. However, they would have a hard time.
So yeah, that's I guess that kind of gives us a point to go off. So in a case like that, is the I guess the employer, the person in HR, like how justified would they be in saying something along the lines of, I guess, hey, I don't see you have any papers here. Yeah, you have some projects up on GitHub or wherever. I can look at those, but where are your papers? I want to see papers, or else no go.
I mean, there's not much room for discussion there. Once you not degree, then consider yourself dusted.
Yeah, that just sounds wrong to me, honestly.
I agree with you, Andrew.
Mm. I'm okay with playing the bad guy because I talk to a good amount of people, and one of the things they tell me is that they have all this experience and qualifications, but once they tell them, oh, I do have the degree, essentially every other word after that just flat. They know, okay, we're not hiring this person.
What about someone with a degree and no projects?
I mean, all right. So here's the thing. One of the things I realized, right? Just finishing those 3 or 4 years shows a certain level of commitment, right? It means that you can follow through. Maybe you weren't the best student, but you do have that piece of paper that says, "Hey, I finished university." And once you have that, then a lot of corporate employees will just grab you same time for that entry level role. All right. So I think now that we have a little more of a basis now, right? So I think back to my previous question would be, how many years do you think this entry level role would require?
How many years to do what though?
Any
Because
entry level role. All right. No, let's work with something specific here. Let's say I want to be one of those software developers at a local company, right? So how many years would be required for this entry level software developer role?
oh, you mean if someone gets luckily gets hired as an entry level person, how many years they should stay in that role before they get advanced?
No, no, no. Here,
Or
all right, hold on. Here's the
You're
question I'm
speaking
asking.
from,
Hmm?
I was saying that you're more so speaking from the perspective of seeing like a job description for an entry level role. What amount of years
Yes.
would be acceptable to ask for that entry?
Yeah, that's correct. So let's say I'm looking at a job description on like LinkedIn, and how many years do you think should be on that job description to say, hey, you need X amount of years. We're looking for somebody X amount of years for this entry level role.
but that sounds like it should be a zero though. That's entry level. The one who is supposed to be entry, the one who I would consider entry level is someone who has no experience. So this would be that's why I kind of say we need to really define this thing well. So an intern would be entry level. When an internship, assume nothing. Usually, you do that from in school, but sometimes that don't work out inside of the school context. And yeah, so you have entry level persons who are not interns once they leave school without that extra thing. But yeah, so it's really hard to really because there are so many different angles that you can come at with it, in my opinion.
All right, I get you. I get you. So what you were saying is that entry level would be perfect for an intern then.
Yeah, that would, yeah, an intern would be, well, maybe you have some who might intern several times in the same thing. I don't know if that is allowed anywhere or whatever, or what that really means. But yeah, usually the very first role you get should be considered entry level.
What I'm getting from you is that I would need prior experience, let's say as an intern first, and then I can apply for
No,
the
no,
entry.
no, 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 no. The intern would be the entry level person. Well, most of them. So the first role you get, that whether you got it through some thing in school or you self-taught and now you decide that, oh, I have been learning this bunch of stuff. I've been learning mobile development for a couple of years now. Time for me to actually get a job with it. That's an entry level thing. So I wouldn't look at, in that latter example, I wouldn't really look at that quote unquote couple years doing this side of it. I would, well, from a, ideally, from a hiring perspective, I would want to see something along the lines of, all right, this person self-taught. It's not about the number of years, it's about the output. So what have they been doing? And what does that, what does what they have made available say about their capabilities? Because that's what it really comes down to. What's the capability of this person?
How do the rest of you feel?
So yeah, I think zero because as you said, it's about the candidates skill with the tech stack and then their soft skills. So are they able to work with other people? Can they take initiative and all of that? That's what really matters, not the amount of years. Because even if someone do a lot of years, that doesn't necessarily equate to all of that time being spent doing something valuable. So it makes no sense to me to consider experience as a primary factor in hiring somebody, especially for entry level.
Okay, all right. These are some. I mean, these are interesting points, right? But let's um let's flip the script up here. Let's say you're an employer for some big company, right? And people pass through the organization all the time. What you want is the best value for your dollar. You want somebody who, yes, it's an entry level role, but they already know what they're doing, so they're gonna spend less money on training. They can start working on the projects faster, right? So even in a case like that, would you still say zero for the employer who has all these costs and other factors to manage?
Yes, because for any position, you're going to be learning on the job. So you can't realistically expect anybody to just hit the ground running and know everything they want, no matter how much experience they have and how much of it being good. They're never going to be perfect for the job. As they just start, they're going to be immediately productive. When you start a business, it's not immediately profitable. So why would you expect an employee or just like any other investment to be immediately profitable? That doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Tariq. You're about to say something?
No, I'm just saying that I agree. I agree.
All right, so all of you here
Same
agree
thing.
that zero is the right amount of years, right?
Yeah, Jason, Golali.
Good night, everybody. All right, so I'm a teacher, so it's a bit different in my industry, so to speak. When we are interviewing persons, entry level is if you're just leaving a teacher's college or a university. And on the sheet that we grade you from, there is something called relevant years of experience. If you're coming from a high school, then because I teach at a community college, we don't consider you having any relevant experience if you have not taught, say, CAPE, right? And because we see CAPE as, what do you call it now, post-secondary, so to speak. So that's how we see entry level and whatnot. My question where tech is concerned is, I'm a teacher of computer science for 17 years now, and I'd like to get into the industry. And I'm like, do I get in as an entry level? I don't think so. But then what would the industry say? Because I teach software development, I teach programming, various programming languages. But then in terms of having, in my estimation, because I'm not in industry, so I don't even know what I should know, so to speak. So in terms of having the requisite or the relevant experience, I would probably want to see myself as entry level, whereas somebody that is in the industry might not see me as entry level. If you get what I mean. So the working with people, I know that part, but the relevant information that I should know where programming is concerned, building out an application that is for a business or whatnot, do I know it, and how much am I expected to know in order to say, all right, I am not going to be applying to an entry level post. I'm going to be applying to a software engineer post, which requires me to have 4 years of experience or something like that. So that's really my question for the persons who are on at this time.
All right. Thanks for sharing your experience. So you would be classified as somebody going through a career change, and as such, you would start from entry level. Teaching computer science, while good, from like HR's perspective, you're somebody who would be, just entering, so you'd have to learn different things, pushing code to like maybe a GitHub repo, production related issues, changes happening in the software development industry, or there's a mindset shift from actually being a part of that programming team and teaching it. So I'd say you'd still be entry level.
Okay.
Listen, question. So based on the example I was just giving, if someone is teaching computer science for 17 years, and you're saying that they would have to take on an entry level role because they might not have the experience in actual software development. They just have experience in teaching, right? As a student of that person, would you not say that the teacher would have to be way more competent than that student to be able to teach them whatever they're learning? As such, it couldn't be a case where the teacher and the student would be starting at the same level if they're entering into the industry. What's your take on that?
Yes, I see where you're going. All right, let me step back for a minute. So I like where your mindsets are, right? But you're not thinking like corporations. Corporations see employees as more dollars, expenses, costs, than more so well, yes, in a sense, valuable assets, but more so a cost that they have to bear. So, if I see a highly experienced individual, but I know I can put them in this box where I can pay them less, I'm going to pay them less. Because at the end of the day, once the balance sheet is done up and I see, okay, I have X profit, I have Y expenses, I'm trying to ensure that I'm maximizing profit and decreasing expenses. To your question, would this person start off as the same place as their student? Technically, yes. If you meet somebody who's a little more lenient and says, hey, this person been teaching computer science for how long, maybe I'll put them to up like a mid-level role.
Yeah,
So
I
basically,
agree more or less with those sentiments, but more from like again the capabilities angle. So one of the things that I always see popping up in forums with regarding stuff like this is that yes, so whenever someone leaves an academic setting and goes into a work setting, that's when they actually start to learn stuff, quote unquote. Because the thing is, in the academic setting, when you're learning the theory of stuff, you're learning how to like, you're learning syntax for programming, and you may do a few projects, but there aren't really any stakes on it typically. So it really boils down to, can I get this problem statement, convert it into code, and run it and debug it. But those problem statements tend to be very simple, very simplistic. So they don't really reflect what's at the industry level. And there are so many other things surrounding these things as well. It's not just writing the code, it's finding it. It's you have to determine like with the stakeholders, have meetings with them and determine, okay, these are the things that are required, these are the things that we'll work on and this time, and these things will push back to another time. These are issues, if it's an existing thing, these are the issues that customers are facing or may create a better experience. These are the other tools that we use to deploy and monitor all of that stuff. There is a lot that is actually not taught in school. So yeah, you kind of end up back at that point where once you leave the academic setting, it's a whole different ball game, more or less. So yeah, it really just comes back down to capabilities, and that's kind of why in many tech jobs they have this whole many of them like would do tests and this whiteboard thing that a lot of potentials really hate. But yeah, it's just determining where does this person stand with their capability set to contribute to the projects that we have here. So that's kind of the main thing there for me.
Floor is open to anybody else who wanted to speak their thoughts. All right. So I like how the direction of the debate is going so far. So now is a good time for me to mention, kind of follow up on what I said re corporations earlier. Why is it are we seeing 1 to 3 years for some entry level roles? Like I mentioned, from like the employer's perspective, what they're trying to do is, I want the most qualified person I can get while paying the least amount I can justify, right? So you might have a case where somebody who isn't really entry level, they might apply for an entry level role, right? That would be seen as a plus, as you have this asset that you're paying less, but they're doing work, let's say, much faster, more efficient than, let's say, somebody straight out of university. Yeah. Another perspective would be no, no, yeah. Most of that would be value based, right? How much more value can I extract? Because if you think about it logically, companies, when they employ individuals, they're trying to extract value from us, and for that value, we get paid X amount, right? So from that formula, if I can get the most value while paying I'd say whatever classifies for entry level, then hey, the corporation wins, right? We have to always remember in our heads that at the end of the day, the company is just using us, extracting value from us. And with that in mind, we have to know how to move. So if for you, you're saying, I see this role over the red bank that's gonna pay you much more, then yeah, you would apply for that role and hopefully get through when you can move up a salary bracket. But you should never really and truly put the company above your own well-being and your own self, right? Because if you were to drop down tomorrow, they're gonna have to replace. They have to find somebody else for that role.
But that kind of leaves us like an elephant in the room because you have this thing. It's specifically called entry level. So if entry level says 1 to 3 years, then how does the 0 year person get a foot in the door? How is someone like Gold Ali supposed to transition into that kind of thing unless company is gonna say, well, yeah, you've been teaching for all these years, so you know enough for us to determine that yeah, you can contribute enough and we take you on. But yeah, it just seems really contradictory to me. Entry level should be entry level. You're starting from like zero with regards to that particular industry or role.
Hi, good night. Oh,
You can go ahead, Kay. We do want to invite others to speak.
okay. All right. So just a little 2 cents. I do agree with what you're saying. I think it was Andrew that spoke on the entry level. However, I also kind of see it from the company's point of view where if you are starting from zero, then you're kind of more looking towards an internship role where you're learning and figuring out what to do. But the 1 to 3 entry level, I think it also encourages us as those applying to put more of our personal projects or work more on learning more about the field before actually entering or fully stepping into a job in that way and doing some personal projects, putting your work out there and putting that on your resume as opposed to just showing up with nothing at all. So I kind of feel like that's where the 1 to 3 comes in. I do think 3 is a bit high still. I think 1 year of experience with projects that you've done from school should be enough to say that you're willing to work here and these are the things that you can do. And you've already started to do a kind of base assessment of what you need to do to join the role.
Anybody else wanted to follow up on that before I go ahead?
I don't think companies would say personal projects as professional experience that they're asking for in their job description. And even if they did, that wouldn't really, what I work in my spare time could never really compare to a production project where there's hard deadlines and everything else. So I really don't see any way how you could use my personal projects as a way to say how I would do in a professional setting.
Not more of how you can respond to it, but I'm just speaking from personal experience and something that I've done where I've created projects and then presented that on my resume and said this is something I created. Here's how I did it. Not everyone is going to be perfect, of course, but there are some skills you do learn from university in terms of meeting deadlines. You have met a bunch of and that you're able to say, I've every single day, submitted documents, so done exams, and I think that as well is part of it to show submitting those projects, even final capstone as well. this is a part of something that I've done where I've met a deadline and been a part of a team. And it's not professional, but it is a starting point to say I have some level of experience in where I want to go.
Yeah, I like the university example. I think I did mention it earlier that it shows you're able to commit to this thing. And yeah, given how the computing degree is structured at many of these places, you would actually leave university with, I'd say, a couple of projects on their belt. If you guys check in the chat, in the tech chat, I actually posted a few images. Andrew, you mentioned about yes, if you need more than 1 year for the job, how are you gonna get the entry level role? That's a catch-22, right? You need experience to get a job, but to get the job, you need all right, hold on. Let me see if I say this right. To get the job, right, you need
You need
experience.
experience.
But you can't get the experience because you don't get the job. So yes, that's a catch-22 right there. Below, you'll see some other photos that I had ready. Employee asking for 10 years, you just turned 20. Dynamic work environment. But anyway, I'm straying. Did anybody else want to jump in and say something before I move on?
Jason Clark, being awfully quiet.
Yes, I'm just here observing. But I have a few things I want to say. Okay, we can start on the project example. Let's see. Was it Goldali gave? He said that he created a few personal projects, put it on his resume, and he wasn't able to get through because of that.
I think that was
Case study.
That's correct?
Yeah, that was okay, but yeah, continue.
Alright, so in my personal experience, I created a few personal projects. And I guess it comes down to marketing the project and marketing how you approached it and the whole process of what you develop. Because the personal projects that I created, they were able to get me a job. In fact, the first personal project, a really big personal project that I created, got me a project, a government contract for the Herbert Mercer Technical High School. So I'm wondering if it's a case of the project being a personal project or the person not being able to sell the project as efficiently.
Or maybe contacts. Jamaica, Lee, all of them slip. Well,
Didn't really have any context.
okay.
I see where you're going. That leans into something else. But yeah, the truth is that many persons aren't good at marketing themselves. They're not good at marketing projects. Even the whole structure of the resume. Ideally, for each job, you'd want to fine-tune the resume, maybe cut out a few things or highlight a few things. Because, at the end of the day, these persons, they're not going to spend that much time on their resume. They're going to read through it. And then, they have probably like 15 other resume for read through. So one issue that you find a lot of persons job seeking that they don't know how to properly sell. Like you hear Jason talk about, you can tell he's a man that could probably sell you a ship where you don't need.
If I can sell that much, but I'll try. But even on the scope of personal projects, one could ask how big was the project? Because I remember creating an application called Real Estate JA, which was basically something like just get keys. It's a real estate directory, and it was a full stack application. It was holistic in nature. So there was much that I could talk about in order. And I remember the role that I got because of that project was on a Canadian educational platform called Wozals. I was able to get Wozals because of the project I created. Use the same technologies and I was able to do that project. And that was a personal project that I used in actual job. So I guess the scale of the project and what you can say about the project also comes into play. Because having a, let's say, weather app, for example, wouldn't be the same as a actual full stack application dealing with real estate listings. There are levels to the complexity that you can do with a weather app in contrast to a full real estate listing platform. So scale of the project might also play a role.
Yeah, definitely, because the HR is going to well, maybe not even HR. I guess HR is the first place, but the actual person doing the interview on the tech side, if it's a personal project, or personal projects, they would want to be able to see, okay, so how well does the things that this person has done in their projects, how well does the knowledge that would have come from all of that align with what we're looking for in this role that they're applying to? So passing through HR, as Jason said, those in that era, someone might be going through 15, 20, depending on the role, maybe a couple hundred resumes. So the slightest thing they see that they don't want, they just bin it. So a resume has to really stand out to pass that level. And then, yeah, when you get to the next level of the interview stage, then you need to be able to really sell your works. You need to be able to sell your resume saying that. So the interview asks, all right, so I see here you have a real estate project. So what did you learn from this? Well, I learned how to interface with databases and how to connect to these APIs, and I encounter these kind of issues, so I learned how to resolve those, that kind of thing. So there are at least two levels to it.
Right, and that's a good point. And something else that could be said. The topic for this debate was entry level gatekeeping. How many years should be required for an entry level role? However, as we were talking, you could have 3 years of experience, you could be coming from a teaching role, and you can still be considered entry level. However, when going out and actually applying, something that was very surprising to me when I just started is that the line between entry level and, let's say, mid level is very thin. So a lot of persons are applying for entry level positions when they could easily, with the same amount of qualifications, get a mid level position if they knew how to market themselves properly. Because entry level and mid, oh, it looks like my battery's dying. Sorry. I was saying entry level and mid level. The distinction between them is not so much.
All right, so we get the job, spend a 1 year or so, I hone my craft, and you're saying that within a short amount of time, I can become a mid-level employee.
Yes.
I think that's a fair assessment, because entry level, as some of you highlighted, you're starting off with just learning the ropes. You've been taught all these things. After a while, you should hit, let's say, some level of mastery. We can call it that, and you can turn off your brain and push that code to GitHub or whatever you need to do. So yeah, but the thing is, the tricky part here is we kind of have a job title problem where you have, let's say, let me use software development. Let's say you have at a company, you have software development, and you have senior software developer. Right? There's no really mid-level software developer role, right? So is that you'd fall into one category or the other?
Yeah, and different companies have different expectations for those levels as well. So yeah, you might have a company have just developer and senior developer. Another company might have junior, mid, senior, way beyond the clouds. And yeah, you have all of these things, and everyone is really looking for some. There's no real standard to say that. All right, so for a junior developer, this is expected, and this for the mid level, this and this is expected. Everyone has their own opinion, and that's kind of what's going to really catch people once they get to like the interview stage or even just submitting the application. So yeah, you put in junior and you put in a junior entry for a particular resume, send it to a couple companies, and one look at it and say, well, this person doesn't really match these requirements. Another look at it and say, okay, yeah, I can work with this one. And it's kind of at the same level when you compare the responsibilities. So it all comes down to opinion as well. And yeah, we'll go back to Jason Clark. It's a matter of really selling yourself. That's what it really comes down to.
Right. Oh,
No man, go ahead. I was just about to ask if anybody else want to jump in.
I was just gonna say, I think that one of the things that most persons weren't taught, and they still haven't learned the art, is selling yourself. Selling the dream that you are one of the best candidates that for this role. Persons aren't really taught on how to sell themselves and how to market themselves. Because interview out of the way. I've talked to many persons in HR, locally and internationally. The resume alone is good, but it might not get you through the door. They want deciding factors. So apart from your resume, focus on your GitHub. GitHub contributions actually makes a difference because the person that are scouting and that reviews these candidates is the GitHub. And if John makes 1,000 contributions per year and you're applying, you have a great resume, your resume is, let's say, factually it's better than John's resume. However, you have only contributed to your GitHub 3 times for the year or 20 times for the year. John has an advantage over you because he has actual working experience that's shown on GitHub. And it might seem that this might not be important, but when you're looking for deciding factors, these things do count on you. And setting up your LinkedIn profile so that it's professional and that it portrays yourself as, let's say, an expert, that's also very important. And most persons, they're not focusing on them GitHub, they're not focusing on their LinkedIn, they're not marketing themselves, they're not selling themselves. They expect certain type of results, however, they are not doing the necessary work that will allow you to get those results. So that's something else that I think should be a conversation about.
Well, just to kind of extend that a bit, sometimes it's the reason why a person isn't really marketing themselves a particular way is because they just aren't aware how to. I don't even really know how to market myself too. I kind of consider myself lucky in a way. I have some projects out there, and I can explain them, but yeah, I'm not very good at selling, and that kind of tends to be from my readings. That tends to be something pretty prevalent in the industry. Good at the technical side, but not so good at the soft skill side. So that's always something that we need to work on, and yeah, that's one of the things that typically has to happen when the job starts because that isn't really taught in school. So yeah, you you're in school and you communicate with your buds and all of that, but you don't really get any. You might have a few like group projects, but it's like these don't really give a give good enough experience to say that all right, when this person joins this company, I can put them on a team and they'll work well with these other persons, and they can really explain their thought processes well, and maybe even write these reports, all of that extra stuff that just comes after the education bit is done. Well, after the formal education is done. Yeah.
All right. I think there was two things I had on the brain. One was a lot of persons, they focus on, nice resume, all these projects and things, but people miss out on like soft skills, like how do you speak, how do you project yourself, how do you relate to the other people around you. Sometimes the company, while looking for somebody who's technical, they're looking for what you would call a cultural fit, right? They see where you're a highly qualified individual, but say the company have this little drink up at the end of the month, and look like you're a man who would go drink with them. So them say, what, this person, Andrew, he's not a fit for the company. So I go with a man like Jason, who look like him can drink down all 2 liter of rum in a one go. I can have a good time at the end of the month. Right? So something you have to consider as well with this whole entry level thing is, this place just might not be for you. And if they reject you, then that's fine. Right? Because you're really in on the foolishness at the end of the month. The other thing I wanted to ask, Jason or anybody else in here is like, where would one learn how to sell themselves?
Learn through school and all throughout life. Basically everything in life is kind of popularity contest. So you choosing, gaining friends, anything else in life, you're constantly making yourself appealing to everybody because you want to be liked by everyone. So everything in life requires you to sell yourself. There's literally no point in life that you never not going to sell yourself. You just don't think of it consciously. Unless like it's something big like running for office for government or anything of the sort, but everything in life you're selling yourself.
I agree with that. And for, let's say, a more concrete answer on where could you go to learn how to sell yourself? Learning how to sell yourself, you have to first boost up your communications, boost up your debating, boost up your one-on-one interaction. So getting out and talking to persons, that could be the first step. Now there are also, let's say, clubs that you could join. Toastmasters is one of the clubs. I think NCB hosts Toastmasters. And I don't remember the locations because it's been a while since I've heard anything from them. But Toastmasters is in a club where you can go to learn how to debate, how to present, and through that, you develop your social skills, you develop your debating skills, you develop your awareness, and you can have situational awareness. So you then know certain things you can say here, certain things you can't say here. You can read the room, and from that, you can just develop your communication skills. But one of the main things I'd say is actually go out and talk to people. And through talking to people, you have a wider scope on how to interact with the different type of persons that there are out there. And from you understand how to interact with the different types of persons, communicating with them on, let's say, projects and work related things should be easier for you. But you can't just stay at home all day and watch show and expect to be the most social person. You have to put in a lot of work.
Okay, I think you've been trying. You can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was trying, but then also I do want to agree with the You can't just stay at home. Personally, for me, there has been a difference between last year and this year. In terms of marketing yourself, I think you can't, or selling yourself, you can't just wait for somebody to tell you. It's not something that you're going to learn all the time. You have to look at how other people are doing it online. So even LinkedIn, posting on LinkedIn your experiences, how you worked. I realized in the States, I think that's a big thing as well. Posting projects and then interacting and commenting on other people's posts. I see a lot of people, what they do as well is they join group chats. So even the Aki group chat, asking friends around how existing group chats, things that you can join in. What's the thing that JIA hosts as well? The hackathons, joining in on hackathons as well. I think that adds to even work experience to show that you can work with a team, how well you can improvise, how well you can adapt to a situation. I think these are just important skills as well that just show how you can fit well in with a group, how you can socialize. And I think a lot of companies want that as well. A lot of times you have personality hires where I work with some people that don't know anything, but because their personality is so inviting and warming and they're able to lift up an office, the office wants them there. So I think that's an important skill to have as well.
I'm glad you touched on the whole inviting person that doesn't know much, because truth is, life is unfair, right? Yeah, we can be technical, we can talk about all these other things, but just having this warm and inviting personality can get you through the door past Andrew, Jason, and every other more technically more competent person. Right? So you have to think of what advantages that you might have over the man across the road, your coworker, your schoolmate, because everybody has their own unique set of advantages. Some people can finish deploying that code on the weekend, no sweat. Some people, they can immediately raise your spirits just by being around them, right? So I do want to kind of bring things back to the original parts of the debate, but before I go into that wrap up section, I wanted to hear from the rest of you if you have anything to say. All right, then. So, now that I'm at the wrap up section, I think we've been going for over an hour now. I want each of you that wants to speak anyway, to tell me, now that you've heard, points from this person, points from that person, and every other individual, how many years do you think should be required for an entry level role?
I'm still at zero because again, it's still this entry level thing, and it's not about years. For me, it's not about the time spent. It's about how much you get out of that time. Some persons might might do a set of projects and get a certain amount of expertise, knowledge, skills in 3 months. Another might get the same amount out of that in 3 weeks. Another, it might take a year. So it's not about time, it's about that capability. And so that's why I think we're still going to have the case of the whiteboard. So in the interview, you're kind of, well, I don't even know if this happens out here because we're mostly about the paper. But when I was in the US, one of the things that I had to contend with was the whiteboard. You go up and you go like write out an algorithm and all of that. And you had to know how to think on your feet and everything. That kind of thing is really hard because you have to really, really know your stuff. If you don't know what you're doing, then once you start writing, you're gonna freeze up. And if you do get through the writing and the interviewer start asking why you chose that algorithm for sorting or what are the advantages and disadvantages of another approach? Well, it's between you and them other persons who know their stuff even more. So that's kind of how it ends up. It's all about the capabilities for me. It's not about the time.
And I'd agree with Andrew. It's about the capabilities and not the time. But if I had to put a time on it, I'd say, as Andrew said, 0 to a maximum 1 year. And I'm saying 1 year because in a year, you have 365 days. Now, you don't work the 365 days, but it's just an example. If you do anything consistently, you're going to become very good at what you do. You're going to have a better understanding of what you do. And after the 1 year, you should be competent enough to work on whatever project and add to the code base in a meaningful way. And just to bring in a quote, or it's not really a quote, it's a theory from one of my favorite books called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He explained a rule called the 10,000 hour rule. And basically, what that says is if you spend 10,000 hours doing any skill, you could be considered, let's say, very competent at it. He said master, but I'm not going to go that far. You'd be very competent at any skill that you practice for 10,000 hours. Within the year, you're going to elapse 10,000 hours. Let's say, what it? Working, thinking about work, and contributing to the project. So that said, after 0, you start off with no experience, you get the experience, 1 year maximum, you should be able to be in that entry level position.
All right, who's next?
I'll try going. I I think for entry level, it should be at least 1 year. And I do stand by it because anything before that, I think, should be an internship where you're gaining experience and learning the tech stack as well as through school, learning technologies. I'm just going to use my field as an example in software engineering. Let's say you're learning HTML and CSS, all the bases needed. I don't think that should be something learned in an entry level job unless you're adding on to it by changing up a framework or so. So I think those things should be limited towards internship, which should require zero experience. You're just starting out, you're just learning fully. And then entry level, where you're actually using your skills and building on that, I think should require 1 year of experience with things that you've learned from university and internships.
All right. Anybody else or anybody want to comment on what they heard so far? All right then. Um. Hmm. I think it's been interesting to hear different perspectives. I did, of course, a little background on all this before we kicked off the debate, and um, while I like what a lot of you are saying, I don't think it's gonna really be reflected in a lot of these corporations. Well, at least the Jamaican ones, cause most of these jobs in corporate Jamaica, they might have a degree, or you work for your 1 to your 2 or your 3 years, or somewhere along the line where they can know that you have X amount of experience that they can benefit from and really maximize as much value as possible. Because that is the role of the corporation, extracting value from us, right? Ultimately, I do hope that each of you have maybe, I don't know, tweaked how you view the whole entry-level thing a bit, or maybe you change your mind entirely on how many years required or what is required for it. But before I end this chat, I wanted to hear if any of you have any final thoughts or final words.
Final words. Learn to market yourself and actively market yourself. It will take you places.
Yeah, work on those public profiles. So yeah, as Jason Clark was saying, the GitHub profile, and a lot of people do blogs as well. So someone learning a tech stack or whatever, they just blog about what they learn and all of that. So all of that stuff adds up, because a good company is going to, well, I think, I'll clarify that a good company is going to have the interviewer is going to check and say, all right, this person has put these links here in their resume, so go check it out. They have a nice blog that explains how they learn all of that stuff. And so, yeah, and they have these contributions to that particular project, which were accepted. So, yeah, that can be considered work experience because you're working with other people in public, and your stuff was seen as valuable. So, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna assume that that's it. All right, it's been my pleasure, people, and I hope you all have a good night.
All right. Good night.
All righty. You
Bye.
too. And see you at the next one. Whenever that
See you at the
is.
next one.
Yeah, we have to have another one. And another one.
You know what would be a good topic?
What's that?
A controversial one. Should interns be paid?
Oh no.
That's
Yeah, I'm out.
Man. Yeah.
I think Tariq was saying something. You're saying something, Tariq?
No, man, I was just saying all the best.
All right. I think we'll have a little poll on what the next topic should be, so you guys can look out for that in one of our chats. So until next time.
All right.
All righty.